My name is Frances Hart, but everyone in town calls me Fran. I'm 67 years old and I run a small corner store on Maple Avenue in Toledo, Ohio. It smells of coffee grounds, pine cleaner, and something honest. The kind of place that's been there longer than most marriages in town. I've worked every day since my husband passed. I built that store shelf by shelf with my own hands. Thanksgiving morning, I closed early. I wiped the counter. One last time, turned the open sign to closed and whispered, "Family first, business later." I still believed that back then. My son Luke had invited me, or maybe I had invited myself. Either way, I baked a pecan pie, packed a basket with small gifts for my grandkids, and ironed my best sweater. It smelled faintly of detergent and nostalgia. Driving across town, I rehearsed small talk. I told myself this year would be different, that Luke would hug me the way he used to before money made him taller than love. The streets were quiet, the city wrapped in the amber hush of late November. When I turned into his neighborhood, everything changed. Large houses glittered with imported wreaths. Cars worth more than my entire store lined the driveways. Luke's house sat at the end. Glass walls, sharp edges, no curtains. Pretty, but cold. I parked behind a white Tesla, grabbed my basket, and stood at the door. For a second, I saw my reflection in the glass, an old woman holding pie and hope. Then the door opened. Tessa, my daughter-in-law, stood there in heels, sharp enough to cut asphalt. Her perfume reached me before her smile did. She looked me up and down, corduroy pants, thrift store coat, snow on my shoes. "Oh," she said, "you're here." Not a greeting, a statement. "I came to my son's house for Thanksgiving dinner," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. Her lips curved, but not upward. "Old man," she said, "there's no room for you." Her manicured hand motioned toward the dining area. Then she did it. She took a plastic plate, red cheap, the kind used for children's parties, and set it on the floor beside a row of shoes. "For you," she said. My chest tightened. Behind her laughter and the clink of glasses filled the air. I froze. Then Luke's voice sliced through the noise. "Dogs eat there, too." He laughed. So did two of his guests' short, embarrassed chuckles that died halfway. The room fell silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper recognition. I realized this was the moment people talk about when they finally stop pretending. I looked around. Strangers stared at their wine. The smell of turkey turned sour. Luke stood tall in his designer shirt, pretending confidence, unaware of how small cruelty makes a man look. I felt heat rise from my chest to my face, but instead of crying, I laughed. A quick, clear laugh that made Tessa blink. Well, I said, picking up the plate, "Good thing I'm house-trained." A couple of guests gasped. Luke's grin faltered. Then I set the plate on the table right in front of Tessa's golden-rimmed china. The action was quiet, deliberate, like placing evidence before a judge. I leaned closer and said 4 words, soft, precise, lethal. "I raised you better." The air cracked. Nobody moved. Even the turkey knife hung mid-air in someone's hand. Then I smiled. Not the kind you give at family photos, but the kind that says, "I'm done." I adjusted my scarf, picked up my coat, and turned toward the door. "Mom, don't make a scene," Luke muttered. I looked back at him. "Scene," I said. "No, Luke. This is history." As I stepped outside, cold air hit my face like baptism water. Snow had started falling, slow, calm, almost theatrical. I didn't run, I walked. Every step steady, measured, final. Behind me, through the frosted window, I saw Tessa whisper something into Luke's ear. He shrugged. He looked smaller now. Money can build walls, but it can't keep shame from slipping under the door. I reached my car and laughed again this time, louder, freer. That laughter startled a delivery driver unloading boxes next door. "Ma'am, you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Never better." He grinned. "You're tougher than you look." I smiled. "Honey, I own a convenience store. I've broken up fights over milk discounts. I can handle Thanksgiving." He laughed, shaking his head, and drove away. Inside the car, I rested my hands on the steering wheel. They smelled faintly of cinnamon and betrayal. The pecan pie sat untouched beside me, its crust cracked from the cold. I whispered to it, Looks like it's just you and me, sweetheart." As I drove home, the radio played an old soul song about second chances. I rolled down the window, let the snow hit my face, and said to the night challenge accepted. Because here's what people forget about older women. We've seen enough storms to know which clouds to chase and which to burn. Halfway down the highway, my phone buzzed, 11 missed calls from Luke. I turned it face down on the seat. Behind the silence of that plastic plate, something had shifted inside me. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes looked older, yes, but also awake. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. When I reached home, I parked beside the store. The neon sign flickered faintly in the window, Fran's Corner Market, since 1987. Inside, it smelled like warmth and survival. I turned on the lights, set the pie on the counter, and poured myself a cup of instant coffee. Steam rose like courage. I sat by the register and opened the small metal box I keep under the counter. Inside were old receipts, bank slips, and handwritten notes, each one a memory of the times I had loaned Luke money. $45,000 for his first company, $10,000 when he bought the new house, $3,000 just until payday, promises stacked higher than any shelf I ever built. I touched the papers gently like touching scars. Then I took a pen and wrote across the top sheet, "Proof of love." I looked at those words and laughed again, dark humor, the kind only people over 60 truly master. Because love without respect is just charity with bad accounting. Outside wind howled down Maple Avenue. The streetlight flickered, throwing shadows of the store's sign against the snow. Somewhere deep inside me, a quiet switch flipped. The same switch that kept me running the store through blizzards and blackouts. The one that says, "Fix it, don't whine about it." I poured another coffee, black and strong, and whispered to the empty store, "You humiliated the wrong woman." That night, I started counting. Every receipt, every transfer, every broken promise. By midnight, the total stared back at me. $98,000. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just smiled and said, "Interest starts tomorrow." Then I turned off the lights, locked the door, and headed upstairs to my apartment. Outside, the snow kept falling soft and relentless, like quiet justice getting ready to begin. The bell above my shop door jingled as I stepped back inside. It was past 7, but the air still carried the metallic scent of snow. I flipped the sign from open to closed again, though no one had come for hours. The storm outside pressed against the glass like an uninvited guest. Inside the store hummed quietly the fridge, the old radio, and the whisper of fluorescent lights fighting to stay alive. I took off my coat, hung it behind the counter, and poured myself a cup of instant coffee. Steam curled upward, gentle but stubborn. The first sip burned my tongue. Good. Pain meant I was still awake. I turned on the radio. A man's voice crackled through static reporting heavy snow across northern Ohio. "Stay home, folks," he said. "Temperatures dropping below 15. I looked at the empty aisles lined with canned soup cleaning spray and cereal boxes that hadn't moved in weeks. If loneliness had a sound, it would echo like this place at night. I leaned back on my stool, tapping the counter rhythmically with my nails. Every sound magnified the hum of the heater, the wind outside the soft creak of wood. I could almost hear my past talking back to me. When my husband Charlie died 30 years ago, this shop was half a dream and half a pile of wood. I built the rest myself. Luke was only 5 then. I used to stack him in a playpen behind the counter while I worked. He learned to count by reading price tags. I used to think I was raising him for a better life. Now I wasn't sure whose life that turned out to be. A sudden thud outside made me flinch. I peeked through the glass. A trash bin had toppled in the wind, rolling down the street like a drunk raccoon. I chuckled. "Well, buddy," I said out loud, "at least one of us is still moving forward tonight." Then I heard a knock. Not on the door, on the side window near the ice freezer. 3 short taps. My heart jumped. For a second, I thought maybe Luke had come to apologize. But when I looked closer, I saw only the reflection of falling snow and an old delivery man leaving a crate by the door. He waved before trudging back to his truck. Just the new shipment of milk. I laughed at myself. "Get it together, Fran," I muttered. "You're not starring in a thriller, just your own life." Still, I locked the door. Twice. I sat again behind the counter and reached under it for the small metal box. It was cold to the touch tin, dented and heavy with years. I'd kept it hidden there for decades beneath the dusty invoices and discount flyers. Inside were handwritten receipts from every time Luke needed help. 1989, $2,400 for tuition. 1995, $3,000 for a truck. 2002, $700-800 for his first company. 2008, $10,000 to survive the recession. 2015, $25,000 to buy the house. The ink had faded, but the shame hadn't. Each note bore his signature, a promise that money would be returned soon. Soon never came, yet I'd kept them all stacked like little tombstones of trust. As I sifted through them, the radio played an old country song about forgiveness. The irony almost made me snort coffee through my nose. I wasn't feeding a son, I whispered. I was financing my own humiliation. Saying it out loud hit harder than I expected. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. Sharp, cold, liberating. Then thunder cracked outside. Snow lashed against the window hard and fast. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. For a brief second, the store looked like a black and white photograph, silent and ghostly. I picked up my phone. 11 missed calls, still from Luke. I turned the phone face down again. If I answered, he'd talk about family, about respect, about how I embarrassed him. Funny how those words only show up after someone's done the embarrassing. The heater groaned. A few shelves rattled. Something rolled across the floor. A jar of pickles escaped from the lowest rack. I bent to pick it up, slipped slightly, and cursed out loud. The jar stopped just short of my boot, glinting under the flickering light. "Even the pickles are trying to leave me," I muttered. I set the jar back in place, then looked around. Every item here had a story, the mop that outlived my marriage, the broom handle duct-taped 5 times the jar of honey from a local beekeeper who once flirted with me for free coffee. Life at its most ordinary was still worth laughing at, but somewhere beneath the humor, anger simmered low and steady. I wasn't angry that Luke had turned into someone different. I was angry that I'd helped him do it. I stood, grabbed my old ledger, and began tallying everything again. I wrote each figure neatly, my handwriting firm despite the years. When I finished, the total blinked at me like a headline, $98,000. $98,000 of motherhood unreturned. $98,000 of loyalty mistaken for weakness. I poured another cup of coffee, this one black as truth. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed, not bitterly this time, but like someone remembering an inside joke from God. Outside, the snowstorm thickened. White flakes spun wildly under the streetlight. Somewhere, a siren wailed, a fire truck maybe, or an ambulance cutting through the frozen dark. The sound faded, leaving the world small and private again. I sat back, legs crossed, watching the storm from behind the counter. It looked almost peaceful. Maybe storms aren't always sent to destroy. Sometimes they're sent to clear the view. That thought made me chuckle again. I raised my mug toward the window, as if toasting the chaos. To the storm, I said, and to whatever comes after it. Lightning flashed somewhere far off. The radio crackled and died. Silence swallowed the store whole. I stood, walked to the breaker, and flipped the switch. The lights buzzed back on. Everything glowed a little warmer, as if even the electricity had chosen my side. I returned to the counter, took one final look at the receipts, and placed them carefully back into the tin box. Then I closed the lid, locked it, and whispered, "Tomorrow I start again, but this time for me." The clock struck midnight. Snow piled against the window, sealing the world outside. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped in this store. I felt protected by it. I climbed the stairs to my small apartment above the shop. The floor creaked, the kettle hissed, and I smiled. Outside, the storm kept roaring. But inside, something even stronger had started to rise, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Justice. 7 days passed after Thanksgiving. 7 days since I lifted that plastic plate off the floor, looked Luke in the eye, and said 4 quiet words that sliced deeper than a scream. I raised you better. 7 days of silence, until my phone lit up like a casino machine at 5:12 a.m. 11 missed calls. I blinked at the screen. Luke, Megan. Unknown number. Luke again. Then a text popped up from Megan. Mom, the mortgage bounced. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Call me. I took a slow sip of coffee. The cup warmed my hands. Snow pressed against the shop windows, thumping like impatient fingers. A voicemail notification flashed. Play. Mom, hey. The mortgage payment didn't go through. I'm sure it's a mistake. Call me back, okay? Next message. Mom, it happened again. The bank says the account doesn't exist. Did you change something? Call us? Third voicemail. Mom, answer your phone. The fourth was from Luke. You better fix this old lady. My finger hovered over delete, but instead I hit save. Evidence is sweeter when it's organized. I pulled out a legal pad, clicked my pen, and began taking notes. Date, time, caller, ID. My handwriting was neat and sharp, the same handwriting that logged every dollar I ever gave him. The phone rang again. I let it ring. 5 times. 6. 7. They could chase my ringtone all day. I opened my laptop and logged into the bank portal. My name was the only one on the mortgage account. And now my name was the only one on the cancellation. Because I had removed my auto pay. I had removed the financial oxygen they'd been breathing for years. The phone beeped. Another text from Megan. Mom, the bank says we're 60 days late. They're mentioning foreclosure. Please answer. Foreclosure. I repeated, letting the syllables melt like chocolate on my tongue. Action should never be rushed. Revenge should never be loud. It should be administrative. I opened the voicemail app again. The newest one was from Dylan, Megan's husband, whose hobbies included protein shakes and belittling people who donated to his life. His voice was sharp like a cracked plate. Listen, you fix this. You hear me? You better fix this old lady. There it was. The moment entitlement meets panic. I paused the voicemail and rewound just far enough to hear him call me old lady again. I wrote down the timestamp. I wasn't angry. I was documenting. A knock echoed behind me. Norma barged in before I could answer, carrying 2 coffees and 3 cinnamon rolls wrapped in a napkin. Her lipstick was the same shade of chaos it always was. You look tense, she said. I'm fine. No, she corrected. You look like someone who's planning a quiet revolution, which is my favorite kind. She set the coffee on the counter and leaned over my shoulder. What's that? She asked. Voicemails. Good. Save them. They'll play beautifully in court. She grabbed a cinnamon roll bit into it and gestured dramatically toward the phone vibrating on the counter. You know, she said, talking with her mouth full, if stress burned calories, your son-in-law would be invisible by now. I laughed. A real laugh, sharp, surprised cleansing. Norma pointed at the phone, vibrating again. Don't answer. Let them chase you. Running builds character. I sat back, letting her words settle. Snow slammed into the window harder. Wind howled around the building. The storm outside felt easier to understand than the storm inside my son's house. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from a number I recognized. Paula Jenkins, Bank of Maple Ridge, my old friend. Fran, I need to talk to you. In person. Today. Something isn't right. A chill ran down my spine. I stood, grabbed my coat, and slipped my tin box into my bag. Norma raised an eyebrow. Where are you going to the bank? She winked. Get 'em. The snow had turned into a curtain of white as I drove. My old truck complained the whole way, wipers squeaking like 2 rubber chickens arguing. At the stoplight, I breathed through the tension. My heart wasn't racing from fear. It was racing from clarity. For once, I was the one who didn't need them. When I walked into the bank, fluorescent lights washed everything pale. Holiday garlands hung unevenly. Paula spotted me instantly. Fran, she said, lowering her voice. Follow me. We walked past cubicles until she led me into her small office. She closed the door, rolled down the blinds, and spun her monitor toward me. "Your name is still the only one on the mortgage. I know, but look here." She clicked a folder labeled Secondary Loan. Another document opened loan application account number's signatures. My signature. Except I hadn't signed a thing. Paula tapped the screen. "He submitted this 3 months ago. He, Dylan. He had forged my name. He used your credit and applied for a $60,000 secondary loan against the house." My blood turned to ice. Paula leaned closer. "Fran, this is fraud. This is serious. You could lose your store, your credit, everything." Outside the office window, snow kept falling, white, endless. My voice was steady. No, he could lose everything. Paula blinked, but then slowly smiled. "Do you want copies?" "Yes," I said. "Every page." She printed them, stapled them, neatly slid them into an envelope and placed it in my hands like sacred scripture. As I walked out of the bank, I whispered to myself, "No shouting, no chaos, just paperwork." Snow stung my face as I stepped into the wind. My phone buzzed. Another voicemail. "Mom. Please, we're desperate." Funny how people find Mom again the moment they need something. I walked toward my truck envelope clutched tightly. Norma's words echoed in my head. Running builds character, but documenting builds justice. Mini climax transition. Chuang 4. I opened the truck door, sat down, and warmed my hands over the heater vent. Then I started the engine and whispered, "Time to visit the police station." Because quiet revenge isn't just satisfying, it's legal. The store closed early that Thursday. The back in 10 minutes sign hung crookedly even though I had no plans to return. Outside, the Ohio sky looked the color of wet concrete. Inside my counter became a battlefield of receipt statements and ink-stained evidence. I started sorting. Bank transfers, check duplicates, emails from Luke still polite, then still calling me Mom. "You're the best mom. Couldn't have done it without you." I used to reread that line when I needed purpose. Now it felt like a punchline delivered at my expense. I labeled folders by year. My pen didn't shake. My breath synced with the hum of the old heater. When I finally stacked everything, 42 pages thick, yellow folder, bulging with betrayal, it looked like a prop from a courtroom thriller. Only this wasn't fiction. I took one last look at the top email timestamped 3 years ago. The subject line, gratitude. He had thanked me for wiring $12,000 to his emergency business account. The same account I later discovered was used for a Florida condo down payment. The folder snapped shut with a sound that felt final. Justice wasn't going to knock. It would be mailed, notarized, and served. Benji stopped by around noon. He worked across the street at the auto shop, ex-Marine, decent, with engines even better with silence. He saw the stack of papers, whistled low. "Looks like homework for someone who finally got tired of being polite." "Something like that," I said. He picked up one envelope, frowned at the header. "Elder financial abuse. That's a real thing now." "It's been real for decades," I replied. "We just got better words for it." He leaned against the counter. "You should talk to Carla Jenkins. She's handled cases like this. No theatrics, just precision." "Lawyer best one this side of Columbus," he said. "Doesn't even raise her voice, scares people worse that way." He scribbled her number on a business card, greasy from motor oil. "Tell her Benji sent you." That night, I sat in the motel lobby, free Wi-Fi, flickering, waiting for her to answer. When she finally did, her voice sounded like stone polished by water. "This is Carla." I told her everything. The money, the signatures, the threats. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, silence filled the line like a pause before a verdict. Finally, she said, "We don't yell. We document." I smiled into the dark. "That's what I've been doing." "Good," she said, "because the law listens to paper, not pity. Bring everything to my office tomorrow morning. We'll let the paperwork speak." Carla's office smelled like fresh toner and quiet fury. She wore black glasses, a navy suit, and an expression that could slice through pretense. She motioned for the yellow folder. I slid it across. Her assistant, a young woman with lavender nails, started scanning. Each page clicked under the scanner, a metronome for truth. Carla flipped through the first set. Wire transfers, dates, memos, handwritten notes, she murmured, all admissible. She looked up. And these signatures, you didn't sign these? No, I said. He traced my name from a birthday card. Her jaw tightened. Classic. They call it familial forgery. Judges hate it. I watched her annotate margins in neat red ink. She wrote like someone cutting fabric clean measured without waste. Why didn't you go to the police first? She asked. I wanted to understand before I accused. She smiled faintly. You understand now. Perfectly. She leaned back, folding her hands. This will be civil and criminal. He won't see it coming. You'll need to stay composed when it lands. I'm done shaking, I said. Carla studied me for a moment. You remind me of my grandmother. She never shouted either. But she always won. We filled out affidavits until noon. I signed my name 10 times. Every stroke steadied my pulse. Every signature reclaimed something that had been quietly stolen. When I hesitated at the final page, Carla's voice broke the silence. This is the complaint for fraudulent transfer and breach of trust. She turned the document toward me. Once you sign it, moves from story to record. My fingers hovered over the line. He's my son. He stopped acting like one the day he put your name on that loan, she said evenly. I signed. The pen left a small blot of ink, proof that justice, like grief, is never perfectly clean. Carla slid the packet into a thick envelope and sealed it with the flat of her palm. That's how you start a fire, she said. A legal one, I corrected. She smiled. The only kind that leaves everything standing. Her assistant handed me a copy in a red binder. I slipped it into my purse beside my grocery list and a roll of mint candies. Ordinary items beside extraordinary evidence. Before I left, Carla gave one final instruction. Stay polite, she said. Politeness unnerves people who expect you to beg. I walked out into the cold afternoon carrying the folder. The wind pushed my coat open. I didn't close it. Let the cold in, let it keep me awake. At the crosswalk, Benji's truck honked. He leaned out the window. Well, I've got representation, I said. He grinned. Good. You looked like someone planning fireworks, more like a controlled burn. Same thing he said, just safer for the neighborhood. That evening, I sat by the motel's small heater, the red binder on the table beside my tea. I reread the opening page again. State of Ohio vs. Luke Hart. Complaint for fraudulent transfer and forgery of signature. The words looked heavy, official, beautiful. Outside, snow started again, soft and unbothered. Somewhere across town, Luke probably poured himself another drink, convinced I was harmless. He'd forgotten where I worked behind a counter stacked with ledgers, proof, and patience. Patience is just revenge wearing reading glasses. I turned off the lamp, but the yellow folder still glowed faintly in the dark, like an ember waiting for air. For the first time in months, I wasn't shaking. I was filing paperwork. The snowplow scraped Main Street at dawn. Its rumble shook my motel window. I brewed motel coffee. It tasted like apology and grit. The red legal binder sat beside my cup, steady as a brick. My phone buzzed before sunrise. Nora texted one word. Look. She sent a link to Tessa's public post. Her caption floated over a filtered selfie with soft lighting and contrived tears. Caring for elders is hard when they become delusional, it read. Below it, hearts bloomed in rows like artificial roses. 100 comments arrived within minutes, then 200, then more. Stay strong, Queen one wrote. Protect your peace, wrote another. I scrolled without blinking. My pulse stayed even. My coffee cooled. Tessa addressed me without my name. Some people invent debts to control their adult children, she typed. Pray for us. Nora pinged again. She is crowdfunding sympathy, Nora wrote. Do not reply from your account. I set the phone on the desk and breathed. Delusional. The word looked theatrical in pastel font. I whispered to the empty room. Delusional maybe. But I remember every dollar. I opened the red binder. The tabs shone like small shields. Wire transfers, cashed checks, thank you emails with emojis. Numbers do not trend. They testify. Nora called. Her voice carried morning steel. I will handle the noise, she said. You handle the record. What are you planning? I asked. Civics class with glitter, she said. Also memes. 10 minutes later, a new account appeared under the post. Username Oh Porchlight Truth. Avatar a ceramic rooster from my store. Nora's first comment slid in like a pin through silk. Queen of Hypocrisy spotted, she wrote. Reminder that banks keep timestamps. Another followed. Question for the class. If grandma is delusional, why does she keep receipts with your thank you notes? Laugh reactions popped like corn. Someone asked for sources. Nora posted a blurred image of a loan memo with dates visible, names hidden. Redacted for privacy, she wrote. But math stays loud. Tessa replied with a wounded paragraph. We tried to help, she typed. She refuses care. Nora answered with equal sweetness. Self-care is wonderful, she wrote. Identity theft is not. The thread tilted. A few of Tessa's friends retreated to neutral phrases. Family stuff is complicated, one wrote. A different voice entered practical and plain. My dad kept ledgers, they wrote. Numbers saved him. I watched the pendulum move. Slow but visible. I did not gloat. I underlined a date in my binder. Carla's mantra returned like a refrain. We do not yell, we document. I printed the entire thread at the motel's front desk. The clerk handed me warm pages with a sympathetic nod. Rough morning, he said. Routine, I said. Just collecting weather reports. Back in my room, I arranged the prints by time. Comments stacked in chronological bands. Screenshots joined them, each labeled with a simple caption. Public claim of delusion. 7:10 a.m. Counter evidence acknowledged by bystanders. 7:36 a.m. I added an index sheet and slipped everything into a clear sleeve. The packet clicked into the red binder like a final puzzle piece. Nora texted again. Small victory, she wrote. Tessa limited comments. I pictured her tapping her keyboard with a grin. What next, I asked. T, she wrote. Also a certified letter. We met at the shop an hour later. I unlocked the front door. The bell gave its shy ring. The space smelled like cinnamon gum and floor cleaner, familiar as breath. Nora swept snow from her hat and pointed at the copier. Print 2 more sets, she said. One for Carla, one for the bank officer. Paula, I said, then corrected myself. Carla is counsel. Bank is Denise today. Nora fed pages into the tray with ceremony. Your binder is a better sitcom than television, she said. Today's episode features digital hubris. I smiled, the first clean smile of the week. Careful, I said. Humor is habit-forming. She grinned. Let me be your pharmacist. While the machine hummed, the shop door opened. A customer stepped in from the cold, scarf, high eyes, curious. His name was Mr. Petty, a retired mailman who collected stamp packets and rumors. You two see Facebook, he asked. Wild stuff. We sell bread milk and boundaries, Nora said. Anything else is aisle 3. He laughed, bought batteries, left with a wink. Nora turned back to the stack. See? She said. Quiet justice travels faster than gossip when you give it shoes. At 10, we drove to Carla's office. The parking lot was an ice rink with lines. Inside, the receptionist offered peppermint tea and even eyes. Carla read the printouts, her mouth tilted like a level finding center. Good captures, she said. These show publication falsity and malice. The trifecta for defamation. She drafted a notice while we waited. The letter was a blade in plain language. Cease the statements, retract publicly, preserve evidence, counsel attached. No thunder, only precision. She looked up. We serve this today, she said. She will understand the difference between narrative and liability. I signed an authorization. The pen felt light. Nora checked her phone and smirked. Porchlight Truth just posted a haiku, she said. 24 likes in 6 minutes. Carla raised one eyebrow. Haiku. Nora read it aloud. Pastel accusations. Numbers hold their winter ground. Paper beats a post. Carla allowed herself a small laugh. "Keep the tone light," she said. "Juries enjoy relief." We left her office with 2 envelopes, certified labels bright as warnings. Nora addressed them with a calligrapher's flourish. I bought stamps with flags. Habit is comfort. At the post office, a clerk weighed the letters and met my gaze. "Sending something important?" he asked. "Something fair," I said. Outside, the snow paused. The sky held its breath. My phone vibrated with a new notification. Tessa had posted again. Taking a social media break, she wrote, "Please respect our privacy." Nora screenshot the caption with scientific joy. "Translation," she said. Her counsel called back. We walked to the car carefully. The sidewalk demanded respect. Nora held my elbow like a metronome. "You are allowed to enjoy this," she said. "Just a little." "I enjoy the alignment," I said. "Noise on one side, record on the other." She nodded. "Alignment is underrated." We returned to the store for the lunch rush that never rushed. I stocked canned tomatoes and winter salt, everything ordinary and honest. Nora taped a small sign near the register. "Please keep conversations kind," it read. "Our broom only sweeps floors." Benji came in for wiper blades and a sandwich. He glanced at the sign and grinned. "Your broom sweeps timelines too," he said. "Not mine," I said. "My lawyer's envelope does the sweeping." He tapped the red binder with a gentle knuckle. Still the best prop in town. Afternoon dimmed early. The snow returned like a careful guest. I sat behind the counter and reviewed Carla's checklist. Preserve screenshots, limit direct contact, route inquiries to counsel, document every approach. At 3, my store phone rang. The caller ID displayed a local number I recognized. Tessa. I let it ring twice, then answered evenly. "Harper's Corner," I said. "How may I help you?" Her voice trembled under polished edges. "You sent a legal letter," she said. "My attorney sent a notice," I answered. "It requests accuracy." "You could have called me," she said. "We are family." "We were family when you placed a plate on the floor," I replied. "We are litigants now. Please direct future communication to counsel." Silence stretched, then cracked. "That was a misunderstanding," she said. "You are blowing things out of proportion." "The paperwork will show the proportion," I said. "Good afternoon, Tessa." I ended the call, noted the time, wrote 2 lines in my log. Nora watched from the candy rack, proud and fierce. "You sounded like a calm storm," she said. 10 out of 10. "Practice," I said. "Also tea." We closed at 5. I carried the red binder to the register and locked the drawer. Nora pulled her coat tight and checked the street. A car idled across from the shop, a dark sedan with tinted windows. Her posture sharpened. "Do you recognize that?" she asked. "No," I said. "License plate is half iced." The sedan rolled forward, then away, then back again. It lingered by the hydrant, engine humming like a held breath. My stomach tightened. My voice stayed level. "Lights on in the office," I said. "Door locked." Nora stepped to the window with a phone raised low. She snapped photos in quick succession, 3 angles, 2 zooms. Her tone stayed light for my sake. "Only tourists circle this much in January," she joked. The sedan finally turned the corner and vanished into flurries. We both exhaled, not loudly, just enough. I texted Carla the photos and a short note. "Unknown vehicle circled twice," I wrote. "Time stamped at 5:12 p.m. Carla replied within minutes. "Good documentation," she wrote. "If it returns, call Leo at the precinct. He is expecting your name." I slid the phone into my apron and flipped the open sign to closed. The store sighed with me, shelves quiet as pews. Nora looped her scarf and bumped my shoulder. "Quiet justice is trending," she said. "Did you feel it?" "I did," I said. It felt like a room remembering its shape. We stepped into the snowy evening, boots squeaking, breath white. The town looked small and kind again. Somewhere a choir practiced in the church basement. Voices climbed, then settled, then held one true note. My binder tucked under one arm, I locked the door with my other hand. The key turned with a click I had always loved. It sounded like dignity returning to its hinge. We walked toward our cars, careful and unhurried. Nora looked at me over her scarf. "Ready for the next beat?" she asked. "Yes," I said. We let the paperwork speak. Now let the town listen. Snow softened the streetlights. The day closed cleanly. I placed the binder on the passenger seat and warmed the engine. The heater breathed steady air across my hands. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt the town leaning toward truth. It started with the clink of spoons in ceramic cups. Benji had texted me early, "You won't believe what I just heard. Stay near your phone." I didn't ask questions. I'd learned that curiosity can spook justice before it arrives. From the corner booth at Maple Bean Cafe, he pretended to scroll his phone. 2 tables away sat Luke and Tessa, laughing softly, but with that particular sharpness of people, whispering cruelty disguised as logic. Benji wore his trucker cap low. The tiny recorder in his jacket pocket blinked once, before vanishing beneath his hand. I only heard it later the way one hears rain long after thunder. But when he told me the next part, he said the air felt heavier than coffee steam. "Her store's still in her name," Luke muttered. "Once we get her evaluated, I can assume control. Guardianship means full access." Tessa stirred her drink. "She'll fight. You know how she is," Luke chuckled. "That's why we call it in her best interest. A few signed forms, a cooperating doctor, and she won't know what hit her." Benji nearly dropped his cup. He caught it midair, heart pounding so loud he said it almost registered on the recorder. Tessa leaned closer. "And what about the lawyer?" Luke smirked. "Jenkins? I've got someone to handle that, too." The waitress passed by, smiling at them. They smiled back like actors in a toothpaste ad. Then Luke's tone changed sharper, colder. "She's going to wish she stayed quiet. I'll make it look like she's paranoid. By the time anyone notices, the deed will be mine." Benji's finger tapped the recorder twice, saving the file. Then his phone buzzed loud as a gunshot in that hush of conspiracy. Luke turned. Their eyes met. Benji forced a cough, muttered something about wrong ringtone, and stood up. The tension thickened like syrup. He walked too casual, too straight. Luke whispered something to Tessa. She nodded, then dialed her phone. Seconds later, 2 men in dark coats entered the cafe. Not police, private security. They didn't look at Luke. They looked at Benji. He quickened his pace, heading for the side door near the kitchen. One of them followed, hand in pocket, the shape of a stun baton visible under his jacket. Outside, the alley smelled of espresso grounds and exhaust. Benji sprinted toward his truck boots, slapping ice. "Hey!" one of the men shouted. He ducked behind a dumpster as footsteps approached. His breath clouded in white bursts. The recorder was still running. The LED flickered faintly through fabric. He hurled an empty milk crate toward the other end of the alley. It clattered loud enough to distract them. They split. Benji bolted for his truck, slid across the snow, and slammed the door. The engine coughed twice before catching. The rearview mirror filled with motion. One man pounding on the tailgate, the other shouting into a phone. Benji drove straight into the main road horn, blaring adrenaline, steering more than logic. Later, he told me he didn't breathe until he hit County Route 5. By evening, the sky turned slate gray. I was at the shop sweeping the same corner twice just to stay busy. Benji stormed in face-red coat, zipped high. He set the recorder on the counter. "I got them," he said. Every word. He played it. The first few seconds were muffled with cafe noise. Then came Luke's voice, calm, controlled, familiar. "I'll make it look like she's paranoid." Tessa's laugh followed. "She'll never see it coming." I didn't flinch. I just listened until the last syllable faded. Nora came from the back room with 2 cups of cocoa, froze halfway through the doorway, and whispered, "Did he just say what I think he said?" "Yes," I said. Then I pressed pause. The silence afterward felt electric, like the hum before lightning hits the ground. Nora swore softly. Benji rubbed his palms together. "We can't just keep this," he said. "I know," I replied. "We file it." The next morning, I was back in Carla's office. She adjusted her glasses, hit play, and didn't breathe for 2 minutes. When the tape ended, she exhaled through her nose. Slow, deliberate, deadly. This, she said, is felony-level fraud and attempted guardianship abuse. She leaned back, fingers steepled. They were trying to declare you incompetent. I nodded. They called it protecting my assets. Carla snorted. That's what criminals say when they find morality inconvenient. Her assistant poked her head in. Should I start drafting? Carla didn't answer her directly. Instead, she looked at me. Are you ready to go public, Mrs. Miller? I looked at the recorder still sitting on her desk. Truth is already public, I said. We're just making it official. She smiled. Good. Then let's make it loud on paper. She turned to her assistant. File for restraining order guardianship fraud and a civil suit for emotional distress. Include the recording as Exhibit A. The assistant typed rapidly. The printer started to hum. Carla leaned closer to me. Once this hits the clerk's office, they'll realize they picked the wrong quiet woman. Quiet doesn't mean defenseless, I said. Exactly. We walked down the courthouse hallway together, her heels echoing like metronomes of justice. The fluorescent lights hummed, the world smelled of ink and old heating vents. At the clerk's desk, Carla slid the file forward. Case filing, she said. Audio evidence enclosed. The clerk stamped the corner. The red ink spread like sunrise across the paper. That's it, I asked. Carla smiled faintly. That's everything. Now the system moves. As we stepped outside, the cold wind caught my hair. I tightened my scarf and watched my reflection in the glass doors. For the first time in months, my eyes didn't look tired. They looked deliberate. Later that night, Nora played the recording again while stirring soup. She mimed Tessa's voice dramatically. She'll never see it coming. Then she rolled her eyes. Lady. She saw it coming and brought witnesses. She said, laughing. I laughed too quietly. You should go into acting. She pointed the spoon at me. No, you already took the starring role. Genre legal thriller subcategory poetic revenge. I raised my mug of tea in mock salute. To quiet justice, I said. She clinked her spoon against it. To paperwork that bites harder than lawyers on retainer. Before bed, I replayed the recording once more. Not out of anger, out of proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. When Luke's voice came again, cold calculated, I didn't feel fear. Only a strange kind of pity for someone who thought manipulation was intelligence. I saved the file on 2 flash drives, labeled them neatly Evidence 1, Audio Backup Safe. I placed them inside the yellow folder beneath the stamped documents. The heater clicked. The clock ticked. Outside, wind swept through the empty street like applause nobody dared to give out loud. I closed the folder and whispered the line that now felt like a motto. We don't yell, we document, and we let the paperwork speak. The morning after we filed the case, the world felt quieter. Even the town's clock tower seemed to tick with a slower mercy. I woke early, made tea instead of coffee, and packed a small bouquet of nothing special plastic carnations left from Christmas stock. I was on my way to visit my husband's grave. But when I reached the corner near Maple Street, a small storefront caught my eye. Ray's Florals. I'd passed it 100 times, never once gone inside. Today I did. A bell above the door chimed softly. The smell hit first earth citrus and something like forgiveness. Rows of roses, lilies, and hydrangeas filled the tiny shop. Every color felt like a voice speaking kindly in a language I hadn't heard in years. Behind the counter stood a man, maybe 60 tall, silver hair, wearing an apron dusted with pollen. He looked up with a smile that didn't push itself. Morning, he said. Cold enough to make flowers consider hibernation. I smiled. I was hoping to buy something that survives frost. Ah, he said, stepping out from behind the counter. So you want stubborn flowers? I have a few. He led me to a shelf near the window. Chrysanthemums hold their ground, carnations too. But these, he said, picking up a pot of small white blooms, these are snowdrops. They bloom when everything else gives up. I traced one petal. It felt cool, fragile, alive. I'm taking them to the cemetery, I said quietly. He nodded, not asking who. He didn't have to. After a pause, he said, My wife loved snowdrops. Said they're proof that grief doesn't own the calendar. There was no dramatics in his tone, no tremor, just fact offered gently. "She passed away," I asked. He gave a half smile. 3 winters ago. Breast cancer. 40 years married. Still doesn't feel like enough time." I met his gaze. "My husband died in a factory fire 30 years ago. He'd been repairing wiring after hours. Everyone called it bad luck. I called it theft of time." He nodded slowly. "That's how it feels. You spend half a life building a routine together, then one ordinary day everything turns into memory inventory." For a long moment we stood in the quiet hum of the shop, surrounded by things that refused to stop growing. Then he chuckled softly. "And yet, here we are. 2 veterans of bad luck arguing with nature by selling flowers to the frost." That made me laugh. It sounded strange in my own mouth, rusty but sincere. "I suppose we are." He wrapped the snowdrops in brown paper, tying them with twine instead of ribbon. "Ribbon feels too proud," he said. "Twine's humble. Like the people who actually remember anniversaries. Do you ever forget hers?" I asked. "Every day I try to," he said. "And every morning she reminds me anyway." He gestured toward the back wall photos of bouquets, wedding orders, community garden donations. "After she died, I almost closed the place. But then I realized this shop was her handwriting all over town. I couldn't erase that." I looked around. The sunlight streaming through the glass turned the petals translucent like little stained windows. "You didn't erase it," I said. "You kept it breathing." He gave a small nod. "And you sound like someone holding her breath between storms." That made me pause. "I guess I am," I admitted. Trying to finish a chapter I didn't choose. He smiled, gentle, knowing. Sometimes the only way out is to grow through the cracks. He placed the wrapped bouquet in my hands. On the house, he said, "For your husband and maybe for you too." "I can't accept that," I said. He shrugged. "You can pay me next time. It'll give you an excuse to come back." There was warmth in his voice that didn't feel like intrusion, just kindness, patient and unhurried. When I left, the cold air bit my cheeks, but the flowers felt warm through the paper. I walked the 3 blocks to the cemetery, snow crunching beneath my boots. My husband's headstone was simple. Michael Harper, 1948-1993. Always fixing something. I brushed away the frost and placed the snowdrops beside the old vase. For years, I had brought synthetic bouquets, practical, color-fast, emotionless. But these were alive. They bowed gently under the wind and stood right back up. I whispered, "You'd have liked that florist. He doesn't talk much, but he listens right." The wind carried the scent of the blooms back to me. I don't believe in signs, not really, but the sunlight that broke through just then felt like an agreement. That night, I stopped by the shop again. The sign in the window said closed, but the lights were still on. Elliot, because that's what the receipt said. E. Ray was rearranging a display of tulips. I knocked on the glass lightly. He opened the door with surprise. "You again." The snowdrops didn't offend you, I hope. They reminded me of something I said, that life can still bloom even when it shouldn't. He smiled. That's their entire business model. I handed him a small envelope payment for the flowers. He looked at it but didn't open it. "You didn't need to do that." "I did," I said, "because paying keeps things real." He laughed softly. "Fair enough. You strike me as someone who keeps receipts for the soul." "Occupational hazard," I said. "Accountant by heart, not by choice." He looked thoughtful, then said, "You know the town garden could use someone like you. We're redoing the veterans section next month. I'm in the middle of a legal situation," I said carefully. He didn't flinch. The kind where truth takes its sweet time, exactly that kind. He nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. "Then come plant something anyway. Let the dirt remind you that not everything valuable is in paper form." I laughed quietly. "You talk like my husband would have." "Good," he said. "Means he had sense." When I returned to the motel, I opened the closet and pulled out my old store uniform, a dark green vest embroidered with Harper's Corner Market. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and faint defiance. I ran my fingers over the patchwork name tag worn at the edges. That vest had seen years of work, of small kindnesses, of being underestimated. I hung it on the back of the chair, stared at it for a long time, and whispered, "Time to clock back in." The next morning I wore it, not because I needed to, but because I chose to. When I looked in the mirror, the reflection wasn't of someone broken or frightened. It was of a woman who had fought, and now was beginning again. Outside snowdrops bent under light snow, refusing to quit. I smiled. Life wasn't fair, but sometimes it was stubborn, and that, I decided, was enough. The invitation arrived printed on pearl white cardstock, embossed with gold lettering that screamed performance. The Perfect Family Foundation Annual Charity Gala. Dress code formal. Theme Galaxy of Giving. I read it twice before laughing. Galaxy. They had demoted morality to marketing. Luke and Tessa's faces graced the RSVP page. His smirk rehearsed her smile sharp enough to slice reputation. They were launching a charity to support families caring for elderly parents. If irony were taxable, they'd owe the IRS a fortune. Carla suggested I attend. "You don't fight shadows in the dark," she said. "You turn on a spotlight." Benji volunteered immediately. "I'll handle the tech," he said. "Projectors, audio, popcorn, whatever's needed." So we planned quietly, like gardeners waiting for bloom. The gala took place at the Grand Maple Hotel, the fanciest building in 3 counties. Crystal chandeliers glittered like frozen fireworks. Waiters floated by with champagne flutes balanced like trophies. I wore my old dark green market vest beneath a black blazer, a silent reminder of who I was before they tried to erase me. Carla, poised as ever, walked beside me. "You ready?" she whispered. "I was ready the night they fed me next to the dog," I said. She smiled thinly. "Tonight, the dog eats last." Benji, in a borrowed tux, adjusted his bow tie and gave a small nod toward the AV booth. Everything was set. Nora texted, "I'm in the crowd seat 11B, wearing sequins. Try not to laugh when I speak." When we entered the ballroom, Luke was already on stage, microphone in hand, looking like a salesman for morality. Tessa stood beside him, dazzling in a silver gown that caught every light and none of the truth. Tonight, Luke declared, "We celebrate family values, honor care, and the sacred bond between generations." The audience applauded, forks clinked, wine poured. I felt the weight of hypocrisy settle like cheap perfume. Carla leaned toward me. "They have no idea. Neither did I whispered. Once. Dinner was served lobster bisque, champagne risotto, and a centerpiece shaped like the Milky Way. On the program, I noticed my name listed under special thanks. I laughed so quietly it almost hurt. Then the MC, some polished man with a galaxy pin, tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the screen. A short tribute to a son who supports his aging mother, Luke Hart." The lights dimmed. The crowd clapped. Luke smiled, teeth immaculate. The first frame appeared the Harper family logo spinning in silver, then static, then the footage. The video shifted to grainy black and white. A kitchen. My kitchen. Luke's voice played crisp through hidden camera audio. "She can eat there. Dogs eat there, too." Gasps rippled across the room like wind through leaves. The laughter in the clip, Tessa's high-pitched snicker, echoed through the speakers. Someone dropped a fork. The MC froze. Seems there's been a revelation," Carla finished under her breath. The screen went dark for half a heartbeat, then replayed the moment again, closer zoomed in. This time subtitles rolled in bold white. "She can eat there. Dogs eat there, too." A single ding broke the silence, the delicate sound of a champagne flute against a knife. Nora's voice rang out clear from the audience. "Well," she said cheerfully, "looks like the dog had better manners." For one suspended second, the room was perfectly still. Then laughter exploded. Not polite laughter, raw, unstoppable, cathartic. People clapped. Someone whistled. A woman near the front gasped between laughs. "Oh my God, is this real?" Another whispered, "That's his mother." I sat still. I didn't need to rise or speak. The truth was speaking fine without me. Luke turned pale. His lips moved, but no words came. Tessa grabbed his arm. "Turn it off," she hissed. Benji from the booth hit replay. The phrase echoed once more louder, this time layered with its own humiliation. "Dogs eat there too. Dogs eat there too. Dogs eat there too." Tessa's face twisted. She bolted from the stage heels, stabbing the marble like punctuation marks of defeat. A camera flash followed her, then another. The press had been waiting for something glamorous. Instead, they got justice in HD. Luke stumbled toward the mic. That's taken out of context," he stammered. "We were joking." Carla stood from our table. "Joking about elder neglect. I'm your mother's attorney. Would you like to explain the humor to the court?" Every head turned. Phones lifted. Someone in the back shouted, "Let the man joke his way through bankruptcy." The laughter returned louder, brighter, unstoppable. Luke's shoulders sagged. He looked around for help and found none. I stood calm as a judge in a Sunday pew. When our eyes met, his defiance cracked into something small, almost frightened. I walked to the aisle slow and steady. The crowd parted the way water yields to a stone dropped with purpose. I didn't need a microphone. I simply said, "You had your dinner. I had my dignity. Let's see which lasts longer." Then I turned toward the exit. Behind me, applause swelled, at first scattered, then rising like a tide. As I reached the door, I heard Nora's voice again, triumphant and mischievous. Some galaxies shine brighter without the fakes. The ballroom erupted one last time, laughter blending with the sound of camera shutters and the hum of justice finding its moment. Outside, the night air hit my face like freedom. Carla joined me, her heels clicking beside mine. Benji came running, breathless, carrying the projector remote like a war medal. "You sure know how to end a dinner," he said. I smiled. "Next time, remind me to send flowers instead of RSVPs. Nora emerged from the revolving doors, laughing so hard she nearly dropped her clutch. "I think half the town just unfollowed them live," she said. "Good," I replied. "Maybe they'll finally see the stars without filters." Benji saluted me with the remote. "Operation Galaxy complete." "Not quite." Carla said, her eyes still sharp. "Tomorrow we file the civil claim. Tonight we let the footage travel." We walked toward the parking lot, our reflections trailing in the glass doors like quiet shadows. Inside, the gala continued without its host's guests whispering waiters, unsure whether to serve dessert or morality. I didn't look back. The cold wind carried faint laughter mixed with the sound of clinking glasses, somewhere between ridicule and relief. I breathed in long and slow. It smelled like snow, electricity, and closure. At home, I hung the vest on its hook. It still smelled faintly of cinnamon and resolve. I poured myself a small glass of wine and raised it toward the ceiling. "To the dog," I said quietly. "Best manners in the family." The toast made me laugh, really laugh, until my eyes watered. Because for the first time in years, justice hadn't shouted. It had smiled and walked out the door in heels. January arrived like a clean page. The air over Maple Ridge felt surgical and bright. I buttoned my blazer. Beneath it, my green market vest weighted like quiet armor. Carla met me on the courthouse steps. "Deep breath," she said. "We do not win with volume. We win with order." Benji jogged up, holding a slim, hard case. "Audio is pristine," he said. 2 backups and 1 cloud copy. Elliot joined us with a neat folder. His tie was simple, his presence steady as a church bell. Inside, the courtroom smelled of wood and winter coats. A flag hung behind the bench. The seal gleamed under flat January light. Luke sat at the defense table, jaw-tight eyes restless. Tessa angled her body away from me, but not from the press row. The bailiff called the room to order. Judge Avery entered no-nonsense posture, kind but unsentimental eyes. Her gavel kissed the block. Silence settled like fresh snow. Carla rose first for preliminaries. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward civil matter," she said. "We will show loans, signatures, reliance, and defamation with measurable harm." Luke's attorney, a man with shiny shoes and a sharper tongue, stood next. He called it a family dispute dressed in legal clothes. He mentioned feelings, He avoided numbers. We were sworn in. When the clerk said my name, my voice surprised me. It sounded older and steadier than I felt. Carla guided me through foundations. State your name and occupation. I am Frances Hart, I said. People call me Fran. I run Hart's Corner Market. How long have you operated the store? 27 years. My hands remember every crate. She asked how the loans began. After my husband died, I said, I financed my son's second chance. How much did you lend? $98,000 over 4 years, I said. Each disbursement documented, each receipt signed. Carla handed me the yellow folder. I opened it. Papers whispered like leaves. She displayed copies to the projector, dates and amounts shown on the screen, tidy as grocery labels. Opposing counsel crossed his legs. Mrs. Hart, you love your son, correct? Yes, and sometimes love gives gifts, correct. Love gives many things, I said. Tonight we are discussing loans. He tried a smile. Isn't it true you wrote affectionate notes with transfers? Yes, I said. I also wrote the word repay on each line. A few reporters looked up, pens already moving. Carla resumed like a metronome. Exhibit E, she said. Signed acknowledgement from Mr. Harper. The screen filled with Luke's looping signature. Mine sat beside it. Ink does not love, it does remember. Benji wheeled the small speaker to the evidence cart. Audio Exhibit 12, Carla said. The judge nodded. The first clip played. Luke's voice came clean and careless through the sound system. We can backdate the agreement, he said. Make it look like she forgot. The room adjusted itself around those words. Seats creaked. Someone coughed. I counted to 5. I kept counting. Opposing counsel stood. Context, he objected. We need context. Your Honor, Carla said we will play the full minute. The judge agreed. Benji tapped his tablet. The minute unspooled. There was laughter in the background. There was intent in the foreground. Next came the gala reel. The lights dimmed slightly. The screen filled with my kitchen doorway. Tessa's voice landed like a pin on tile. You can eat there. Luke followed, sure of himself. Dogs eat there too. A heavy quiet fell. Even the fluorescent buzz seemed to mute itself. The judge watched without blinking. Her pen rested unmoving. Carla did not grandstand. She simply said, We introduce this not for drama, but for truth. She moved to our defamation claim. Pages of Tessa's posts appeared cropped and time-stamped. Delusional elder one read. Financially unstable read another. Nora's printed replies were included like lemon in tea. Queen of hypocrisy spotted one quipped. Several shoulders shook. Humor finds light in narrow windows. Elliot took the stand next. He adjusted his glasses. His voice carried warm gravel. I am a florist, he said. I have no interest in family wars. He lifted a small ledger. Luke told me he was paying back loans last spring, he said. He asked for a rush bouquet for Mother's Day and said, Mom likes receipts. Elliot looked at the judge. People tell florists the truth, Your Honor. We hear while we rap. Opposing counsel approached steps soft. Mr. Ray, you sell sympathy, he said. Isn't it possible you misheard while arranging roses? I know roses, Elliot said. I know sentences, too. Carla called Benji for authentication. He identified the chain of custody for the recordings. He described encryption and mirrors. Think of it like triple bagging groceries, he said. Even the judge smiled at that. Finally, Carla called me again for one question. Fran, she said, say what you came to say. I looked at Luke. He avoided my eyes. I raised my son to stand tall, I said, not to step on others. Opposing counsel tried one last swerve. Mrs. Hart, would you take a hug from your son today? My arms are open, I said, but my ledger is closed. We rested. The room breathed. Luke took the stand against his lawyer's advice. He talked about pressure and expectations. He tried to be tragic. The facts were not moved. When Carla asked, Where are your repayments? He offered a shrug. Things were complicated, he said. So are interest tables, she answered. The jury scribbled. Closing arguments came like disciplined rain. Carla built her path with dates and decimals. The law is a simple shopper, she said. It buys what the receipts show. The defense spoke about holidays and hurt feelings. He waved toward the screen and called it a moment. He never said forgery, though it held the room like a locked door. The judge recessed for lunch. Snow flirted with the windows. Benji handed me a granola bar like a field medic. "Eat," he ordered. "Justice runs on calories." When we reconvened, the judge returned with her ruling. No jury today, just her voice clean as winter air. "I have reviewed the documents," she said. "I have considered the testimony and the recordings." She looked at Luke. He finally looked back. "Humiliation is not a family value," she said. "Respect is." I felt the words find their place inside me. They landed and stayed. They would not move for anything mean again. Judgment for the plaintiff, she continued. Principal in the amount of $98,000. Additional damages for defamation and emotional harm, $15,000. Total award, $113,000. Payment schedule to be set within 30 days. She paused and added, "Any attempt to alter records or intimidate witnesses will be referred for criminal review." Her gavel fell like the end of a long storm. The room rustled. It did not roar. Good verdicts do not shout. They settle. Tessa stood quickly, then sat as two reporters approached. Luke stared at the table as if answers lived in the grain. Carla squeezed my shoulder. "We bought groceries," she whispered. "With receipts." Benji lifted the hard case like a trophy. "Saved your best line for the judge," he said. Nora texted a string of stars and a single word, "served." Elliot waited by the aisle with the patience of rain. He offered me a white rose. "From the shop," he said. "No charge, only respect." We stepped into the hallway. Cold light poured from high windows. My knees trembled. My heart did something gentler. Carla spoke quietly. "We can enforce the judgment," she said. "We will if needed." I nodded. "Do it by the book," I said. The book saved me. Down the stairs, Luke called my name. He did not run. He drifted like a person at sea. "Mom," he said, "I can fix this. Start with apologies," I said, "then follow the schedule." He opened his mouth, closed it, and looked away. Outside, the air felt honest. Photographers lingered, then lost interest. Snow began in earnest, small, stubborn, faithful. We stood under the overhang like pilgrims. Elliot tucked the rose into my pocket. Benji snapped a picture of our shoes, salt-dusted and brave. I thought of the plate on the floor. I thought of the folder in my hand. Justice does not erase pain. It keeps it from spreading. I said it aloud. Carla nodded once. That was her amen. We walked to the curb. A bus hissed past like a long exhale. Nora pulled up in her hatchback and leaned across the seat. "Get in," she said. I brought hot cocoa and 3 gossip podcasts. I laughed. It surprised me. It was not brittle. It was bright. We climbed in and shut the door on the cold. As we pulled away, the courthouse shrank in the mirror. It did not vanish. It steadied behind us right where a spine belongs. Tomorrow we would discuss liens and timelines. Tonight I would warm my hands around something sweet. I looked at Elliot in the back seat. He held a paper cup and a question. "Dinner at the diner," he asked. "Yes," I said. "With pie." "Cherry," he said. "Justice pairs well with cherry." Outside, January kept writing its clean lines. Inside, my breath unknotted. I had not shouted. I had organized. I had not begged. I had signed. I watched the snow stitch the town together. We turned toward Main Street, and the light from Hart's Corner Market welcomed us home. Spring arrived like forgiveness, quiet, unannounced, and surprisingly gentle. It had been 4 months since the trial. Snowmelt ran along the curbs outside my new store. The sign above the door read, "White Plate Market." Benji designed it himself, the eye in white dotted with a small porcelain circle. I unlocked the glass door that morning to the smell of fresh paint and coffee. The shelves gleamed, lined with local honey bread and flowers from Elliot's shop. Nora was behind the counter humming gospel under her breath. She looked up. Fran, you realize this place smells like hope, right? Hope or lemon cleaner, I said. Either way, we're open. Benji emerged from the stockroom holding a roll of receipt paper like a victory flag. The system's synced, he said. Even the card readers behaving miracle of miracles. Elliot walked in with a bucket of tulips, shook snow from his coat, and set them by the window. Grand opening bouquet. On the house again. I pretended to frown. One day, I'll actually pay you. One day, I'll let you, he said, smiling. At noon, the bell above the door chimed again. A small crowd gathered, neighbors, old customers, even Officer Ramirez. Someone handed me a ribbon and a pair of scissors. Nora whispered, "Cut like you mean it." I did. The ribbon fell. The applause rose and something in my chest loosened. Inside, laughter and conversation filled the aisles. Kids pressed their noses to the candy jars. An old man bought his first loaf of bread on credit. I watched them move through the store and thought, this is what repair looks like, ordinary and alive. When the crowd thinned, Elliot brought over coffee and 2 slices of cherry pie. You realize, he said, you've turned humiliation into hospitality. I laughed. I guess revenge is better with baked goods. He raised his cup. To the white plate, may it always stay clean. Evening came slow and soft. The store lights dimmed to amber. Nora locked the front door, flipping the sign to closed. Dinner's ready in the back, she said. Benji cooked. That sentence alone felt like a miracle. The back room wasn't fancy, just a long wooden table, salvaged from the old market, and 4 mismatched chairs. Elliot set down a bowl of stew. Nora carried warm bread. Benji followed with glasses of water that looked almost ceremonial in the glow. A single porcelain plate sat before each of us, pure white, smooth, untouched. Elliot poured a splash of wine and nodded toward mine. So what do we call this dish tonight? I looked at the plate, the same color as peace, and felt the full circle close. Family style, I said. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Benji grinned. Does that mean seconds? We laughed loud and real. Nora wiped her eyes. Girl, you made me cry over stew. After dinner, we lingered. The conversation drifted from gossip to gratitude. Ramirez stopped by on his patrol break, grabbed a cookie, and said, "Town's quieter these days. Must be your doing." "Paperwork works miracles," I replied. He laughed and tipped his cap. On the wall behind him hung a framed photo from the grand opening, me holding a plate, Elliot beside me, the sign glowing above. Underneath, Benji had written in marker tonight, "We eat like family." The words hit me harder than I expected. They echoed against that old memory Thanksgiving plastic plate on the floor, the phrase that cut through years of motherhood. Dogs eat there too. Now the echo answered itself. Not bitterness, not triumph, just balance. A few weeks earlier, Luke had mailed a cashier's check, half the judgment, accompanied by a note written in hesitant ink. "I'm in therapy." Tessa left. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you're okay." I hadn't replied yet. Maybe I would one day. Maybe silence was reply enough. Justice doesn't always invite reconciliation. Sometimes it just makes room for it. Elliot noticed my distant look. "You thinking about him?" I nodded. About the boy I raised, not the man he became. He reached across the table, touching the rim of my plate. "You gave him roots. What he did with the soil isn't on you." "I know," I said softly, "but mothers still check the garden." Outside night gathered its gentle blues. Streetlights blinked on. The window reflected our small circle the new family built from scars and choice. Nora turned on the radio. A jazz tune filled the room, soft and unhurried. Benji stretched, groaning dramatically. "If anyone needs me tomorrow, I'll be here pretending to fix the register so I can eat leftovers." "Your family," I said. "No pretending required." He smiled, a little embarrassed. "Thanks, Mom number 2. That name stayed in the air like a warm hand. Later, when everyone left, I cleaned the table alone. The last white plate sat under the lamp, reflecting gold. I ran my palm across it, remembering the sound of plastic scraping the floor months ago. Then I whispered, Not anymore. I placed the plate on the shelf by the window, first item in the not-for-sale section. A reminder, dignity isn't disposable. The clock struck 9. I stepped outside and locked the door. The sign flickered softly in the dark, the letters glowing like a quiet constellation white plate market, born from a kitchen insult, reborn as a promise. Across the street, Elliot waited by his truck. "You coming to the diner tomorrow?" he asked. Maybe I said. "Depends how long healing takes to restock." He chuckled. "Save me a slice of that optimism." "I'll wrap it in parchment," I said. He waved goodnight headlights cutting through mist. I stood there a moment longer, letting the cold brush my cheeks. From somewhere down the block came the faint laughter of kids, the rustle of spring leaves, and the clinking of dishes from an open window. It all sounded like forgiveness rehearsing its lines. Back inside, I switched off the lights except for one lamp over the counter. The glow touched the sign-in notebook near the register. Someone, maybe Nora, had written on the first page, "May every meal remind us where kindness begins." I smiled. Then quietly, I spoke to the empty room. "Tonight we eat like family. Would you forgive a child who once made you eat off the floor, or would you let the paperwork speak for you? Justice has no age, only patience. If you believe quiet strength still matters, like and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because somewhere out there, another parent is waiting to lift their own white plate and begin again."